Hello everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're taking another look here at Solana. This is a request from one of my community members, Alexandru. Thank you so much for your support and obviously just being an amazing valued member. Thank you so much. Now, if you're new to the channel though, keep this in mind. I'm not a financial advisor, I love teaching people to trade, so truly hope you can learn something here today. That's the whole point. It's for educational purposes, and as me not being a financial advisor, just know I've been trading for over 16 years, and my goal is to help you become a better, more effective trader. So that's why I have a trading academy, community, and signal group. Check that out in your own time. Link in the description below. Basically, it just helps you become a better trader. Your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency. So taking a look here at Solana. Big picture here for Solana is it's looking overall decent, but not great. In other words, if you kind of compare it to the past and where it's been before, it's kind of right back to its average true range when it before it took off and went parabolic. So again, this is not a bad place, but it is trying to take off or trying to get back on track, so to speak. So let's take a look and see kind of what's going on here, and we'll just look at the technical data and kind of go from there. So first things first, we're up over the 20-day set moving average, but underneath the 50. The 50-day set moving average is typically working as a resistance level for the most part on the daily. So in other words, if we were to kind of just draw this trend line out, for example, I know I'm just throwing a line on the sand here, but it's gonna run eventually concurrent with the 50-day set moving average. So if you kind of stretch it out here, there's a strong likelihood the price action could get rejected at any of these levels. Okay, again, just something to kind of throw out there. That's how trend lines work. A trend is your friend until it no longer is valid. It's invalidated, right? So in this case, the trend right now is range bound sideways, and it's not terrible. In fact, why don't we maybe compare this quickly here with Bitcoin, just so you can kind of see the difference. So Bitcoin is making lower lows and lower highs, whereas Solana is effectively plateaued to the downside, no longer willing to go underneath $30, and is range bound between 30 and 34. Okay, so that's a good sign. Oftentimes that shows that it's a trend reversal. In fact, if we were to look at this trend here, this descending type of trend, whereas Bitcoin is continuing its downtrend, Solana has broken that. So that's positive because oftentimes you have three different factors. I cover this in my trading academy. In other words, you have descending trends, you have range-bound trends, and you have ascending trends. Oftentimes you go from a descending to a range-bound activity and then an ascending trend. So in other words, we are effectively in this range-bound situation here, and once we start establishing higher highs and higher lows, then we can establish a new trend to the upside. We're not there yet, but generally speaking, that is what we're looking for. Okay, so again, just something to kind of think about there. In that sense, looking good here for Solana, minus the fact that we are underneath 50 on the RSI even still. So just kind of reaffirm the fact that $34 is a strong resistance level. If we can get a closure over $34, I think we can get the RSI naturally up over 50 and to have us be in potentially a more of a bullish type of scenario. Because commonly the price action staying above 50 will result in some positive increases versus the inverse. So when the price is below 50, it's considered a downtrend and essentially working as a resistance level. Okay, so again, mostly positive, but still not there yet, right? Same thing with the convergence here on the MACD. I do like this, that we see the oscillators here starting to increase, getting us that momentum to the upside. That's a very positive sign. So the MACD is a very good thing here, kind of letting us know in the big picture, this continuation could continue higher, as long as we don't get rejected off $34 once more. I think a closure above 34 would give us that confirmation we're looking for. So taking a look at the 4-hour here, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the moving averages. We're underneath the 200. Most coins are like this right now, whereas the 200 is fairly concurrent with the 50-day set moving average on the daily. So in that sense, we can anticipate that being a strong resistance level. So if we were to continue to, just say break up through here, I feel like $37 might be a point of contention. Okay. So again, I would say if you're going to take a trade to the upside, it does feel like 34 should likely be broken here soon, considering it's retesting it a second time. But just say hypothetically it were to break through 34, a profit target at 35, 36, and possibly even 37 would be appropriate. That way you get filled, your trailing stop loss triggers at target 2, and you continue to stay in the trade. If it turns around, you close at break even. Again, those are just strategies that I use in my trading community, of course, with my signals that I send out, but that is a strategy I like to apply by using a take profit target number 2 trailing stop loss that essentially allows for the price action to continue to move the stop loss higher as you hit those targets. But I would say a good target would be 35 and 36, essentially, in between there, to ensure you're not going too far and getting too greedy and hitting 37 when the price doesn't go that far, because it gets rejected at 200. Again, hypothetical everything, but for the most part, could very well work out that way. Oftentimes, for the most part, when you do technical analysis, I would say the probability of it happening is like 70-80%. You're never going to be right all the time. But when you're right, you want to make sure that you take advantage and effectively take your profits while you can. All right, so we're up over 50 on the RSI. That's positive news. We also have a MACD convergence here as well. So when you see a MACD convergence on the daily and the 4-hour, that is typically a recipe for a continuation to the upside. Now we want to recognize here, first of all, though, too, that TD sequential is telling us we're at a 9, and we could very well get rejected based on that sentiment. It's maybe the reason why we got hit off that rejection level at $34 in the first place. So at this point, I would say that the likelihood of a pullback is greater based on that sentiment, but on the same accord, what does that mean in the big picture? Well, it doesn't mean you want to short your shirt off, but if I'm talking to Alexandru, of course, you're probably already doing that, right? It's one of those things where you got to kind of recognize that when you hit a 9 on TD sequential, commonly you're going to see the trend reverse itself. Now, again, this is not a great example because Bitcoin continued to push lower and it pushed price action down here for Solana. But we've got a strong support level here at 30 and we got a strong resistance at 34. So range-bound activity will tell us that we're probably likely to see the price action come down before it comes back up. Now, is it going to come all the way down to 30? The likelihood of that is extremely low. In fact, we want the next low to be somewhere in the range of 31 or 32 to effectively continue to give us those higher lows. Ideally, we would want to have, of course, a higher price action or the price even continue. But just know, with us being at a 9 on TD sequential, the last 36 hours have been bullish, there's a strong likelihood of a pullback based on that alone, okay? So again, if you're going to take an entry, for example, for a long, maybe consider taking an entry at 33.50 where you're at right now, and then also a second entry, maybe perhaps at 31 or 32. That way you can average your price action down and effectively still remain in the trade if it continues higher. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there. Taking a look at the 1 hour, TD sequential is telling us that we hit a 9 previously, and we came up to, we got some resets here, some decent resets, but hypothetically, we almost hit a secondary 9 here. And what I mean by that is just that if you see these little resets, they're not long enough to really kind of warrant a full-on, consolidation, so to speak. So in that sense, with these large wicks up and down, you could estimate this to be another 9 as well. Again, just kind of throwing it out there. It's not specific, it's not exact science. That's kind of where we're at there. So typically when you see 2 9s in a row, that could happen. Either way, we're at a 5 right now, so hypothetically we've got 4 more hours upside to potentially retest that level. I personally feel we're going to see a pullback first, but it also feels like it wants to break because oftentimes when you hit that key level resistance multiple times, especially in a short amount of time after a strong correction, it can absolutely break through, especially if there's a short squeeze. So again, it's a bit of a risk or a gamble. There's no line in the sand here telling us which direction it's going to go, but it would make more sense to see a pullback first before it legs up again and breaks through that resistance. That just makes sense to me based on what I see here so far. Let's take a look at the cloud here, and this is something that's very complementary to Solana. In other words, it's really telling us that we don't want to close our long position. So again, don't short your shirt off because of the fact that we're expecting a pullback. It may not happen. What's a good thing here kind of telling us is a lagging span is free and clear of the price action. So even if the price action comes down by a little bit, we'll still be kind of above that for some time. So the next 12 hours, you probably want to consider more of a long sentiment versus a short sentiment, if that makes sense. Because again, we have all green lights here telling us that we want to essentially keep our long position open. Not necessarily to take one, but to keep it open. So here's what could hypothetically happen. The price action comes down, bounces off the cloud and continues higher. That should be our next low, right at about 32.30, okay? So hypothetically, the price action does retrace. I don't think we're going to see a significant retracement unless Bitcoin, of course, has a really terrible day at the end of the trading day, which doesn't feel like it's going to happen. Then I would say that would be a good place to try to get your fill. So again, that's kind of where we're at here so far. That would still confirm that we're above the cloud and put us in a position to still have a higher low. So again, all good things if we were to see that, right? Because we'd have a higher low here, the price action would continue, it'd be above the cloud, upper and lower lead, and the conversion line would essentially be up above, the lagging span would be free and clear of price action at that point. Or it may even just travel through and continue higher. Again, a lot of the little case scenarios here, but even though a pullback seems like it should happen, I wouldn't expect it to be like a very significant pullback. It should come down to the most recent low and then effectively bounce off that, all right? So it does feel like more likely than not for the macro, Solana is going to break its resistance to $34 here in the relative near future. I think it's definitely looking like a decent trade here coming up. In fact, I might actually send out a signal for this one because it does look like it's pending a breakout to the upside. And if so, then we can go ahead and start drawing out our ascending trend lines and kind of see where it's at from here moving forward. So mostly good stuff here. I like what I see here so far for Solana, and I hope that it was clear and concise in how we look at it here. Very last thing actually we can kind of look at, and this is probably null and void, but Bollinger Bands aren't really telling us too much, as well as the volume weighted average price. We're working within those standard deviation lines, and it looks pretty good here. So again, we're not overextended by any stretch, and it does feel like over the next couple of days, we're probably more likely to see the price action break up than it would down, because $30 has reaffirmed itself as a very strong key level support. But I do think that somewhere in the range of like 3260, 3240, somewhere, I think that number there, where the price bounces off the cloud, would be more likely a realistic scenario where the price action pulls back. So let's just say 3230 is a round number, so we can just kind of round up. Right at 3230, I think, would be a point in which the price could bounce. So if I were to go ahead and set a profit target here, or sorry, an entry target, I'd take entry right where it's at, and my second entry target would be right around the cloud, right at 3230. Okay, so we average the price down a little bit, but if we don't get filled, no problem. We still got half our skin in the game for the upside. All right. Again, different strategies that you like to apply, but bear markets cause for different measures, and that's kind of what I like to kind of consider. So hopefully that gave you some insight and it made sense in how I described it. Thank you so much for joining me here. Again, you want to become a better trader, CryptoCache.tech is a website, link in the description below. I have discounts for military and third world countries. Please message me direct if you have any questions. I look forward to working with you. You have yourself a great rest of your day. Thank you.